Tens of thousands of Canadians could default on their mortgages. There was a news article by the Financial Post a few weeks ago, which in my opinion was lacking a lot of factual content. They stated that mortgage defaults and foreclosures are on the rise as rates climb. Cool, that's something someone would believe as rates rise. People have a tougher time paying their mortgage and thus foreclose. However, this article didn't reference any foreclosure or mortgage delinquency data whatsoever. In fact, the Financial Post in this article is telling general consumers that foreclosures are happening and are going to happen purely based on conversations they've had with a few mortgage brokers. And again, without any factual data. Welcome to another episode of Talking About Fear-Mongering News Articles. Quickly before we dive into the numbers, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, do so now and you will join a great and growing community of like-minded people. And if you want to book a buyer consultation, listing consultation, or just a general call to chat about the market, head to the description of this video where you can book a meeting directly into my calendar. My name is Macallum Tepsich and I run a real estate team of 42 agents here in the city of Toronto. The article by the Financial Post flew a little under the radar, and I'm guessing it's because it wasn't very factual or backed up by any data. However, bank CEOs have been meeting over the past few days, which has led to another article about the same topic, but by the Toronto Star. And of course, with more articles, we have more sensationalized headlines that scare everyone. Let me be very clear. We can't really blame these news outlets. Their goal is to get clicks to drive advertising dollars. So what does the Toronto Star have to say about this topic? The Star states that tens of thousands of Canadians could default on mortgages due to rising rates. Tens of thousands, they say. Might that be 20,000 or 99,000? We're about to find out. Some borrowers, according to the bank's CEOs, are classified as vulnerable to default, but that's just a small percentage of customers. Others not considered vulnerable will also have to adjust their spending in this new higher rate and inflationary environment. Scotiabank has said about 20,000 of the bank's borrowers could be vulnerable, which represents about 2.5% of the bank's mortgage customers. Other CEOs of several of Canada's big banks also said that small percentages of their borrowers are at risk, potentially adding up to tens of thousands of Canadians. Wow. There's a lot to unpack here. First off, there's a pretty big difference between 20,000 and 99,000. And the banks don't really have a good handle on what the delinquency numbers might actually look like based on models. Otherwise, we probably would have heard about it. Tens of thousands is a scary number, or rather a scary range of numbers. But the Star has also walked it back a little bit by adding that the vulnerable borrowers are just a small percentage of customers. And lastly, this is based on rising rates. What would rates need to rise to in order for the vulnerable borrowers to actually default? What if rates don't hit that level? Is this article for naught? I think when we talk about mortgage delinquency rates, we need to take into consideration the mortgage stress test, borrowers' knowledge of the Canadian economy, and rainy day funds. The stress test was put in place for this exact reason. It was to prevent delinquencies and unpaid mortgages. Borrowers are still required to qualify at a higher rate than their quoted rate for the reason of if their variable rate mortgages increase, they can still make the payments. And if their fixed term expires, they have already been qualified at a higher rate, which hopefully matches or is lower than their new rate. And then we have general borrower knowledge of the economy and what to do with their money during the lead up to and in a recession. This is a very interesting piece of the puzzle because I personally have not seen people making a major pullback in spending over the past few months. The malls are still packed, restaurants are busy from 5 p.m. to close, and the rare time I'm actually in a coffee shop, people are still lined up to buy overpriced coffee. Just as the Star article states, other borrowers will need to adjust their spending, and I don't think that's happened to the extent needed quite yet. Now more than ever, the general population has access to more information about personal finance. You go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whichever you prefer, and you'll see a personal finance or investment podcast pretty quickly. Go to TikTok of all places and you'll come across someone talking about finances. And now that I'm saying that out loud, I guess it depends on what the TikTok algorithm is feeding you. Watch cable TV for 20 minutes if you still have cable TV, and you're bound to see a Questrade commercial for managing your own finances. Rainy day funds are a big aspect to personal finance. When you invest your money in stocks, you don't take every dollar you have, you keep some around. When you buy a home, you don't use every dollar in your bank account, you keep some for a rainy day. Let's put those articles on the back burner for now and talk about actual numbers. Let's talk delinquency rates. CMHC provides mortgage delinquency rate data for the public, and it's ongoing. However, it doesn't include Q4 of 2022. And we can look at mortgage delinquency rates for Canada all the provinces and selected CMAs. So in row 6, we have Canada. In row 7 onwards, we have our provinces. And in some metropolitan areas, we can take a look at those. However, this video is primarily focused on Canada and is not niched down to Toronto. So we're going to focus on Canada. The data starts of Q3 of 2012. That's as early as we can get, or as early as CMHC provides, when the mortgage delinquency rate was 0.38%. And that mortgage delinquency rate remains relatively steady until the end of 2016, which coincidentally is when the mortgage stress test came into play. And then in 2018, the mortgage stress test also was introduced for uninsured mortgages. Okay. Now, if we move over into 2021 and 2022, we definitely start to see that mortgage delinquency rates decrease to around 0.25% in Q1 of 2021. Now, in Q3 of 2022, which is the latest and most up-to-date data that we have access to through CMHC, we can see that the mortgage delinquency rate was 0.14%. Now, that's a fraction of a percentage of home loan borrowers that are actually in a delinquent state. I'd love to know your thoughts on this, so let me know in the comments section below. Do you think we'll see a significant increased number of delinquencies and foreclosures in 2023 and even in 2024? If you want to check out my 2023 market predictions, click the video here.